Hey everybody, I'm sitting here with Ellen Weaver. She is a Republican candidate for the Department of Education State Superintendent position here in South Carolina. I know there's a lot of us that we're all focusing our efforts on a lot of different things, and I just wanted to sit with you because now we're in a runoff situation. June 28th is a really important voting day for this runoff position, and I want to get a few things clarified for people who think like myself and have a couple of questions. People who follow what I do in parental autonomy movement, and I think everybody's their own best advocate, so you're the best person to speak on behalf of yourself. And Ellen and I were just chatting right quick before this. This is all about trust, and Ellen earned my trust from the beginning, and she's been very open and candid, so I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
And so I just want to ask a couple of questions that I think people want some clarification on so that we can all vote accordingly for a true conservative Republican on the 28th.
Yes.
So if you don't mind, we'll just kind of
I'm happy to answer. Yeah, and no, it's an honor to be here. I'm so thankful for what you and so many engaged parents have done to open people's eyes about what is happening in education. I know that it's a fight.
It is.
And that you all have knives in your back for
That's
the
right.
work that you have done. And so I just want to say thank you to you. And, I think this conversation that we're having today is really what leadership is about. You talked about trust at the beginning, and the only way that you can have trust is if you have conversations with people. You can't take somebody's word for something. You have to go straight to the source. So I appreciate you allowing me a chance to answer your questions.
Of course, yeah. Well, Ellen, it came to my home today, so we are on a very intimate level.
Yeah.
All right. There is a lot of concern or conversation or whatever we want to call it about your master's degree. I've read the statute. You're clearly educated in the statute. Tell me a little bit about how you're getting your master's, when you're getting your master's, where, and what it's in, just so people can understand. There's a lot of misunderstanding.
Yeah, no, that's great. So I wanted to start by saying that I am going to be fully qualified under South Carolina law. I've been certified by the Republican Party to be on the ballot based on my trajectory to finish my master's degree. I'll be done in October. I'm doing it in educational leadership through Bob Jones University, which is my undergrad alma mater as well. It's an accredited program in educational leadership. So I felt very strongly about the idea that, leading a Department of Education, it was very important for me to look at a degree that had some kind of educational aspect to it. I think that's going to be very useful when I'm speaking to educators.
Sure.
So that we can speak on parity, right? And so we all know that education has changed a lot in the last 10 years, in the last 20 years. These are now competency-based degrees where you are allowed to go online and work through rigorous course content, but at your own pace.
So to clarify, it's an online course.
It's an online course. That's exactly
right. With an end date in October.
That's exactly right. So I'll finish my last 4 classes in October. And I mean, I'll be honest with you, it's a lot of work.
Sure.
It is very time consuming. I mean, it's been very hard running a full-time campaign, full-time student, full-time job, because I have to pay the bills, right?
Sure.
But that's how committed I am to this race. I believe we need someone who has a fundamentally conservative and parent-centered focus in this job, and we haven't had that.
Agreed.
And so, I understand that the other side, when they can't beat you on policy or on politics, they try to create confusion about the process.
Correct.
And so that's what's happened on this master's degree thing. You were talking about trust earlier. We are being told lies about how election law in South Carolina works. I mean, you mentioned the statute. And there's this crazy rumor going around that a judge will somehow decide who the next superintendent of education is. That's just not true.
Right.
The election never leaves the hands of the people. The people will always have a say in who the superintendent is, and that's just how it works. So anyway, bottom lining it, I'm going to be fully qualified, have my master's degree in educational leadership in October, and be ready to serve as superintendent on day 1.
Cool. I appreciate that. All right. The second thing that people are either A, confused about or don't understand or want more in-depth clarification is there were also some things going around about you sitting on the board of directors for the governor's school and their specific requirements for diversity training. And myself included, I am against CRT. I'm against any diversity, equity, anything like that. And so when we see things like that, how do we explain to parents that you're sitting on a board that requires diversity training? I don't even know the answer. How would you explain that or help clarify that to people who need that understanding?
Yep, absolutely. Well, let's lay out the facts, and then I can talk a little bit about what I think we need to do and how this has actually informed my run for superintendent. So, the Governor's School for the Arts and Humanities, I serve on that board in an ex officio capacity because of my role on the EOC. So the EOC has a slot, and an EOC member sits ex officio on that board. That means I'm not a voting member.
Okay, I was going to say, let's clarify that.
I'm not a voting member of that board.
Not a voting member.
That's correct. That is correct.
That's important.
Yeah, that's very important. And so, so when I saw the woke things that were happening at this school, I made myself very clear to the chairman of the board that I disagreed with it, and that I think we need to take the school in a different direction. And I realized that if this is happening in a school in the heart of Greenville, this can happen anywhere. And so that's actually one of the compelling reasons why I'm running, is because I want to have the power to do something about it. As one non-voting member of a board, I can't change anything, but I can, through this office, lead a charge in South Carolina to stand up against that kind of craziness. So that's what's going on there. And I'll take it one step further and just say, when conservatives attack conservatives, Democrats win.
That's right.
And we need more conservatives serving on these boards, not fewer conservatives. And when there are these guilt by association smear campaigns that go out against conservatives who are actually in the arena trying to make a difference, it makes other conservatives think twice about serving.
Sure.
And we need more people serving on these boards, not fewer.
I agree.
So that's my answer on
I
that.
appreciate that. I've just got a couple more things. One of them, which is a bit of a personal topic, but when you're running for public office, you know, sometimes everything's on the table. Some parents just don't understand why somebody who doesn't have children in the system would want to be in a position of, you know, deciding education and really at this point other things for children. Do you want to shed any light on that?
Sure.
From your perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll just be honest and say I would love to have children if that had been in God's plan for me to have children, and it wasn't. So I have worked extensively with parents for my entire career. And like we talked about just at the beginning of the interview, I think leadership is all about listening. And you have to represent a lot of different perspectives in order to be a good leader. Right. And so, you know, I've been fighting alongside parents who are homeschool parents, parents who are parents who have a child with a special need, to try to get them into an education environment where their children can learn. I've spent my entire career listening to parents. And I have a heart for education because I know how much opportunity education has created for me in my own life. And so, you know, I work extensively with special needs children at our church. I have a little nephew who's 10, who is the joy of my life. So we have a lot of fun together. We're going to have an auntie adventure this summer now that he's out of school.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we try to spend a little bit of time together. But you know, I think that I see, in a way, the fact that I don't have a family commitment right now, as actually increasing my ability to do this job in a way that it would be really difficult. I so admire what you do as a working mom. I mean, how you juggle all of the obligations that you have. It's difficult. So I think, again, it's just about having that conversation. It's about listening, and I think that I can represent the voice of parents because I'll listen to them and truly try to understand.
I appreciate you chatting about that.
Yeah.
The last thing I will say is there are some people who, you know, with your financial backing and whatnot, how are you in touch with like true conservatives? Like right now, we're sitting on my farm in the middle of nowhere. You know, I'm just a mom trying to do the right thing, and there's so many people like us. Like, how are you in touch with, you know, your grassroots? But in all honesty, to everybody who's going to see this, you're doing it right now. So I will give you credit. This is one example right here. I mean, I'm so thankful that you're here and creating this opportunity for myself, our families, Lexington families, South Carolina families. So I think that's an example. But what do you say, about people? How are you in touch with the grassroots, right?
Well, no, that's a great question, and I think that honestly is probably the biggest missed opportunity of this superintendent's office. Is that the job of the superintendent is not to sit behind a desk and check off boxes on paperwork. It's to be out in the community talking to people. And so that's how you really do this job well. I've boiled it down to 3 P's. You have to listen to people, first of all, and that means you have to be out talking to people, right? Sure. And so you turn that feedback that you get from people into policy ideas to either fix what isn't working or to support what is working and figure out how to expand it. And then you have to work that policy through the process. In South Carolina, our General Assembly really controls most of the levers of power in this state. Right. So you have to work that policy in conjunction with the General Assembly, with the governor, in order to get things done. And that's what I've spent the last 10 years of my life doing here in Columbia, and 12 years prior to that working for Senator DeMint in Washington. Sure. And so that's really the job, is working that policy through the process. But it all starts with people. And so as superintendent, I'm going to have intentional communication channels set up where parents will be able to access me, hotlines that they can call if they see things that are of concern that the superintendent needs to know about. And I think the only way we are ever going to change education in this state is if we harness the voice of grassroots activists. Because as you know, I'm running against someone who is very much a member of the education status quo. Sure. That is the status quo that has been marginalizing parents for years. And that's going to be more of the same if she is elected. Sure,
I agree. Yes.
And so I think, grassroots activists understanding what's at stake in this election, that there is an incredibly clear contrast between what my opponent and I believe. And that starts back to your question with the fundamental of who are you listening to? Right. Are you listening to the people who have a stake in not changing the system? Or are you listening to the parents who are in this system? Are you listening to the teachers who are in this system who are saying what we are doing is not working? Right. So.
Okay. Well, I love that. I'm so happy you're here. Do you have anything that you want to just wrap it up, or anything you want to say, and then I'll say what I've got to say?
Yeah, absolutely. This election is the most important election in South Carolina this year. We saw what happened to our schools during COVID, and we just can't ever allow anything like that to happen again. Agreed. And so I am offering voters a clear choice for change. Good. And for parental rights. Great. And that is not going to be what you're going to get from the other side. And I say you know who someone is by what they've done, not what they say, but by what they've done. Okay. And I will stack my record as a conservative school choice advocate who has fought for transparency in the system my entire life against someone who is being endorsed by Democrats in the state here, who is actively encouraging Democrats to vote in the Republican primary and take the choice away from Republican voters, who is standing against school choice, who killed a school choice bill in the Senate last night, as a matter of fact. There is just such a fundamental contrast between our records. And so I just am pleading with people to get out and to use their voice and to vote, because if we allow the status quo to continue to run our education system, we have lost the country.
I agree. Well, since I'm not associated with a campaign, I don't work for a newspaper or a news crew or anything. I'm just a community member, a parent, and I'm going to throw my cents out there. If you support parental rights, parental autonomy, true conservative values, you want choice in education, you want support in education, we have to get behind Ellen. It's imperative. If anybody follows what I've been doing for the last 2 years, I've been on the front lines fighting for this, and there's a lot of people that want this and don't know how. So we're providing an opportunity here for Ellen to help us in a position of power in the state, and it's imperative we get behind her on this vote on June 28th. I will say again, because I can voice my own opinion here, the other person running, Kathy Manis in the Republican primary. She is a liberal Democrat. We know this. We know this from her voting record. We know this from every video that we all have record to. She's on the town council that I stood and fought at town council meetings for her. She masked our community. She masked your children. She took away rights when she had the power. She is friends with Joe Biden and the vice president. She is as Democrat as they come. Yet in South Carolina, we've allowed her to run as a conservative Republican, which sometimes confuses people. It just gets very confusing. So what I'm trying to do from my own personal opinion, is show the path that it's very important that we vote for Ellen. And no vote is a vote for the other party. Ellen needs all of our votes.
That's right.
She can carry this position, but we need everybody's votes. Who, if you're a grandparent, a parent, a soon-to-be parent, a soon-to-be grandparent, a community member who wants better education, somebody who owns a home and wants to keep the values up in their community for a good education system, this is what we need. So that's my opinion. I'm going to encourage everybody to vote for Ellen on June 28th. And we really hope that we can bring all of the conservatives together and all of the parents together and all the community together to change the system for sure.
Yeah, thank
So,
you, Stephanie. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
that.
Thank you.